It's week 33 of lockdown. We're here in Red Books. Bit of good news on the horizon, hopefully. We're being told that we may have click and collect back in the next 2 weeks, which will be of huge help to us. And we might be opened in the next month or so. So we're looking forward to that. Obviously, it's difficult as it stands. We can deliver in Wexford Town. We're using standard postage everywhere else. We can meet people in Wexford Town, but we can't do click and collect at the moment. So I want to show you a few books that are on the shelves at Red Books at the moment. The ones I'm going to show you are all brand new. This one is very gruesome true crime, Chambers of Horror, by John Marlowe, and it's got some gruesome characters in it. So Joseph Fritzell is in it, Gary Heidnik is in it, who was a down and out millionaire who wallpapered his hallway with $5 bills, anointed himself bishop of his own religion, and began collecting wives, women he abducted from the street and kept chained up in a pit. So yeah, desperate stuff, but we know you love true crime. Brand new, €5 at theirishbookshop.com. All the books I'm going to show you are available on theirishbookshop.com. If you have any problem accessing the website, contact us on Facebook or Instagram. Next book is brand new as well. It's from the creators of Father Ted, Declan Lynch and Arthur Matthews, and it's Notes from a Lost Tribe. So it's one of their Poor Old Fellas books. It's the newest one in that, and yeah, takes it very funny, takes it to the next level again with the poor old fellas having to find out about Spotify and sexing and composing a tweet and going away for the weekend. So that's €4 brand new on theirishbookshop.com. Next one, we only have one copy left. It's Mr. Pussy, Before I Forgot to Remember, by Alan Amsey, who is Mr. Pussy, of course. So in 1969, a young Englishman named Alan Amsby arrived in Ireland with a frock and a wig. He was booked for 1 week, but was an overnight sensation and made Dublin his home. Catholic Ireland has never seen anything like the beautiful and outrageous Mr. Pussy. For almost 50 years, Alan has delighted audiences and demolished boundaries. So that's brand new. We've only got one left, €5 on theirishbookshop.com. Next up, these only came in during the week. Brand new hardback with a dust jacket. All the Risings, Ireland 1014 to 1916, by Kevin Kenna. As I always say, go and have a look at Amazon. Go and have a look at our online competitors. We have these brand new for a tenner, which is undercutting all of our competitors. All of the Risings brings together the 9 principal occasions in Ireland's history on which resistance was made to the dominance of those who controlled the country's destiny. So on the inside cover it tells you, you've got the Battle of Clontarf, the 9 Years' War, the 1641 Rising, the Battle of the Boyne, the 1798 Rising, the 1803 Rising, the Young Ireland Rising, the Fenian Rising, and the Easter Rising of 1916. Brand new, €10 on theirishbookshop.com. And as I say, we offer free delivery in Wexford Town. It's standard postage everywhere else. And we also do bulk postage, which Amazon does not do. Amazon will charge you per item for postage. We will bulk them together. So the more books you get, the cheaper it will often be. And just people have been saying to us about free postage and things like that. We can't offer free postage. No one does. The book depository adds the postage onto the books before they put them up on their website. We're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. We're telling you what the postage is costing. Next one is brand new as well. These are a beautiful book. Again, check out the competition online. We're selling these brand new for €10, which you won't get anywhere else. Galway City, Snapshots Through Time by Paul Duffy. Some beautiful old pictures of Galway City in it. And beautifully collectible book, €10 on theirishbookshop.com. The last one is now a print book that we got in. It's called Going to the Pictures, and it concentrates on Waterford, Cappoquin, Carrick, Clonmel, Dungarvan, Kilmacthomas, Lismore, New Ross, Portlaw, Tullow, Tramore and Youghal. And it's all about going to the pictures in the 50s, the 60s, when it was very much a different experience. Beautiful book, and like I said, there's the Wexford connection. €5 on theirishbookshop.com. So that's it. I'll be back later on in the show. Thanks for joining us again. The best thing you can do for us is share this video, get the word out there, and tell people about theirishbookshop.com.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Family, religion, friendship. These are the three demons you must slay if you wish to succeed in business. When opportunity knocks, you don't want to be driving to the maternity hospital or sitting in some phony baloney church or synagogue.
Well, gotta do another video. The last ones have seemed to go pretty good. At least I can hang out in my actual normal person clothes. That's pretty great. Well, if a bit itchy. I hope people get that, like, I'm talking about my books, even if I'm going this weird, esoteric, self-interested route. So what's next? Culture. Right. I'm going to make this funny. I'm going to make this entertaining. Oh.
Shit. You guys can't hear that, can you? All joking aside, there's actually kind of a theme that's going on here. I'm not just wacky. I mean, I think I'm wacky, but I'm probably just annoying. Like, I know what I'm about. It all starts in 1964. I would say maybe 1955 or even earlier, but I kind of think it starts in 1964, if we're being fair. Suddenly, you're everywhere. There's this huge explosion and everything's kind of available. Had a huge impact on an entire generation. It happened again in 1984, but I was just born then, so didn't really count that one. See, because it happened while I was still in infancy, to me, it was just a normal world. I incorporated it. I wasn't aware of it. But then it happened again in 1997. This amazing thing that brought with it this flood of cultural significance and change that would have an indelible impact on me and the work that I create to this very day. And that's what I really kind of, I want to go over maybe and have a moment to reflect on, respect, and acknowledge. I really want to talk about it. I really, really, really want to talk about it. When I was about 14 years old, a girl that I went to school with kind of imprinted on me and decided that she was going to make me a popular girl. I don't really know why, but she thought that if she could introduce me, she would prove that I'm just kind of bookish and shy, but all the other girls would like me too. I didn't have anything against this plan necessarily, so I agreed to go with her to see Spice World, the Spice Girls movie, having no knowledge of this culture beyond what you heard on the radio or on MTV. I went. I didn't know any of the music, and in the middle I excitedly jumped up and went, "Hey! That's Bob Hoskins!" An anecdote, none of the other girls. It just didn't really work. I'm not really a popular person. And I blame Bob Hoskins. Whole story. It's Bob Hoskins' fault. Still, by that point, a lot of British culture had already begun seeping into my life. I mean, I watched Britcoms, as the previous video clearly established. I enjoy certain Sherlock Holmes characters. And I'd already seen the Mr. Bean movie, and I had listened to a lot of British music. Some of it I didn't realize was British music, and the rest of it on MTV. And 97, 98 were beginning to be really good years for British artists coming over and establishing themselves. We had like the Cranberries, which in America tended to get conflated as being British. Please don't attack me. I do understand that now. Also, we had Oasis. Just lots of different big bands kind of making their splash. Robbie Williams, of course, working solo, although Take That wasn't really a huge thing. We only had the one hit. But not long after that film, I saw The Avengers, the remake of the classic Diana Rigg and Patrick Macnee spy story. And wow, what an impact the Avengers had on me. The stuffed bears and the convoluted plot and the quirky Britishness of all of it. Absolutely fantastic. And those phenomenal pinstripe suits. I had that poster, John Steed saving the world in style, on my wall for like 2 years, just on the back of the door of my bedroom, until it was replaced by a vintage Peter Sellers poster, which I proudly still own. Now, these sorts of things all kind of swirled together until I got my first real paying job. I'd had a few little jobs in the interim. I'd worked at a music store, and before that I'd worked for the hospital doing candy striping. But then I got this great job. Like, you couldn't have asked for a better job. When I was 16, I got a job working at a radio station, and I was surrounded by music people. I was literally getting paid to hang out, play music, and talk about music with music people. It was absolutely fantastic. And about that time, I started working for what was considered the oldie station, and we would play some things. And I was enjoying a song I had never heard before. It was How Soon Is Now, to which my good friend Brad, came in, and, we were conversating about it, and he looks at me absolutely horrified, and he goes, "What do you mean you don't know who Morrissey is?" To which I responded, "Never heard Morrissey before." This was in Columbus, Georgia. There weren't really any alternative stations. The closest we had was the college or Atlanta. Both were several hours away. Exposure really did fall with what did your friends bring to the table? What did popular entertainment bring to the table? What did your family like? And at that point, I did not know these things. Well, with great ceremony, Brad came back the next trip with a CD that he had drawn all over and made this artwork that was filled with just what was going to become the soundtrack of the entire summer that year. And not just, the Smiths or Morrissey, but also Dead Can Dance and The Damned and This Mortal Coil and tons of new romantic music, ABC, and, oh my goodness, Kate Bush. Tons of artists that I had not yet really ever given a listen to or been aware of, and my whole world changed. My sense in everything changed. My sense of tastes in fashion and literature. I suddenly wanted to see films like Trainspotting, and Breakfast on Pluto, and I wanted to read, these incredible authors, and I really loved the aesthetic of Britain. Suddenly I was aware in a way that was, for some people, books like The Hobbit or The Chronicles of Narnia. For me, it was Britain. Here's a place where people that, that look like you, that speak the same language as you, but their lives are very different than the life that you're living, which meant different lives were possible. That you could tell stories in very different settings, and they'd be the same sort of story. I became convinced that there might be people just like me, but like the British version of me. There might be people that, because they are there, even though they're like me, their whole lives are different. And it meant that you could tell a story or perceive a story entirely differently. And that experience, which we now know to be to Sonder, that reality that every person is living a life entirely as complex and full and long as the life that you're living, but nothing like the life that you're living, utterly independent of you and your experience, is happening. That happened in a tremendous way. And the kind of British explosion, that wave that came in 1997, 1998, really, I think had a massive effect on me. And I don't think I'm alone in that, because when you look at music in that next wave, that kind of pop punk emo movement of bands like Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy, The Killers, all of that music is so clearly influenced by the same music that was influencing me. So I think that would be the next thing I would talk about. To witness that Britain is like us, and yet not like us. And those little nuanced differences. They dress a setting, and they give you an idea of how different walking down a street is depending on where that street is. What does a grocery store look like in a very different place? What do you do on an idle day? How do you know what you value? What are the things that remind you of a broken heart? Or how you explain happiness. That was a huge part of my development, and it changed an awful lot. I felt like I was given new and complex layers of emotion that I didn't have before. So I think the next step in this will be Britain. And if you take the steps that we've gone so far, a kind of blurry, hazy image begins to happen in my mind. Now I'm gonna see if I can send it to you. Just relax. Since you can already hear what I'm thinking, maybe we can make that happen. Let's just hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna.
So let's put all of it together, shall we? Maybe start with the justice and kindness and the importance of those things, those virtues. That's a good start. Then maybe we focus on women and what their struggle looks like and their journey, how it's unique. Then we add a bunch of that England and how much I love that culture and the interesting parts about it. Add some of my own talent and bring it all into focus. And there we have it. 8 stories, a whole series. All comes together when you put the pieces just right.
You guys, thanks so much for listening to me ramble about the silly things that help me tell my stories. The 6th story in the Sophie Hollander series, Tropaliare, is going to be available if you're anywhere else in the world on Saturday. But if you're here in Wexford, you can get it right now today and tomorrow. Wally already has physical copies, and I would just love if you could support the local bookstore over a much larger retailer, what have you. If you prefer a digital issue, contact Wally about that, and I'll get a copy to you directly myself. The 6th edition of this, just so you know, does have a couple of content warnings. This story contains some torture. It is not about torture, and I want to be very clear about that. This is a story about catharsis. It's a story about surviving and finding our inner strength, perseverance. It's about how our experiences change us and how our relationships to ourselves, to our community, and to the people we love help us find ourselves after something has shaken us. I'm very proud to have written it. I hope that you enjoy it very much. The word Tropaliare, it is Latin, and it's where we get the word torture, and it's where we get the word vacation. So either way, it's the story of a journey. This is a story of a journey in the life of Sophie Hollander. It's the 6th book, but even if you haven't read the other books, you could actually start with this one, and then if you like it, go back and give it a try. So don't feel daunted by there being 6 of them. You might actually really like this one, and of course, the more you read them, the more you get the context of a much larger universe. It has special terminology and experiences and history, multiple characters, things of that nature. But please don't let that dissuade you. I hope it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you so much again for listening to me, and have a great night.
Hello, it's Zeph Ryder here again. I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview on something I am working on. It is for a new series of books that are going to be released through Red Books Press, but there will be more. Wally will probably make the announcement later on in the year when he knows more about when he's allowed to trade again in the real world. So this is something I'm working on. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but it's just a thing. So it's called Big Daddy Zev's Grand Catharsis, Caballos Blancos. Alfredo Palmero de Gregorio was a rebellious Spanish artist from Barcelona. His famous pieces were his paintings of white horses. These became very popular in the 1970s and 80s, and the prints adorned many walls. They were, rightly or wrongly so, lumped in with the world of kitsch, really a term used by holier-than-thou gatekeepers of art, and what constituted art in their narrow definition, ever changing definition. Other brilliant artists lambasted as kitsch included J.H. Lynch and perhaps the father of kitsch, Vladimir Trechikov. Trechy was a brilliant painter, but the highbrow artists of the Cape Town 1950s were jealous of the success he had selling prints of his highly decorative works in department stores, thus making art accessible to the every person, a cardinal sin. These art pieces, these kitsch prints, meant people who would, up until then, never be able to afford art or even be interested in art, could now also buy pieces of fine art to decorate theirs. And that is the thing. Actually, buy pieces of fine art to decorate their often working class walls. Right, so then, I'm thinking back now to when I was a child. 5 majestic white horses galloping in the shallow waters of the sea, where the waves break. Horses, cavallos, capao, noble creatures. Equus in Latin, horses as a working animal, capal in Gaelic, being the poetic name for horse, cavalus in Latin, cavallo in Espanol. Same root as Kabbalah, meaning the ancient Gauls and Iberians knew something arcane about these creatures. Collins' Thesaurus, arcane, cabalistic, esoteric, hidden, carriers of the arcane, galloping guardians of the occult, recondite, cowboys, cowgirls, and horses, Western movies. Back in that living room now, my auntie's living room in Silverton Extension 5. Green Crush velvet sitting room settee set, the kind of wooden armrest and wooden legs, mahogany, varnished mahogany. The front door has 2 rectangular panes of orange stained glass in a staggered pattern. When the sun shone through those panes, it created a melancholy yet comforting surrounding, one that brings up existential nostalgia in me every time I think back, especially since the thick maroon velvet curtains were usually somewhat drawn, making the room not overtly bright, thus heightening my other senses, since my eyes wouldn't be offended by the all-penetrating sunlight. Oftentimes now I feel any form of dread. When I feel any form of dread, I would retreat into that space in my mind. It is one of my happy places. 5 white horses galloping in shallow waters where the waves break. One is facing the viewer head on, the others are in various degrees of turning away. The ocean behind them is extremely choppy, tempestuous. The skies are glooming and a thunderstorm is approaching, as evidenced on the distant vista. This is all that is in the picture. My mind makes up the rest. To the left of the horses, the beach starts sloping upwards. It keeps ascending into a massive cliff face. On the right-hand side of the framed horses, the land also slopes upwards, but not as dramatically elevated as the other side. On top of the smaller elevation, there is a plateau. This is where my house stands. The house is fairly but not excessively modest. It is a bungalow and the architecture is 1930s. The front door faces away from the sea towards the winding narrow road. The front garden is full of Christmas roses and geraniums. Assortment of colors. It has a wooden front porch, hanging baskets with yet more sprightly colors. On the side of the wooden porch there is an enclosed area, enclosed of glass, forming a kind of porch on a porch, so that the front door is covered and protected against the elements. There's also a lot of plants here, including some cacti and also ferns on stands. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've gotten so far. I think it's going to probably be a kind of a long short story in a compilation of short stories and poems that I will be releasing later this year. Okay, thanks, peace out, and rock and roll.
So I'm back again. I want to show you some titles of our weird section. We're after getting loads of books on the occult, UFOs, various other strange phenomena in. Now I know conspiracy theories is it's almost a dirty term at the moment with everything that's going on. But I've always enjoyed reading about conspiracy theories, the same as I've enjoyed reading science fiction or other forms of fiction, and they can be great fun. So I want to show you a couple of them. This is a good starter, the rough guide to conspiracy theories. We have a few of these on the shelves. So who could be trying to convince us that climate change isn't real? What might link the deaths of JFK and Marilyn Monroe? When did the CIA start experimenting with mind control? Where did the Masons and the Illuminati come from? Why did the famously unsinkable Titanic really sink? So that's up on the website. All of these are on the weird section on theirishbookshop.com. Next one is very collectible book from Eric von Daniken. Anybody who knows anything about the kind of ancient astronaut theory and the idea that aliens built the pyramids and all that crack, they'll know about Eric von Daniken because he really popularized that in Chariots of the God. This is a later one, The Stones of Kiribati, where he travels to a remote archipelago to look at these giant stones that were built by our ancient ancestors, and of course he links it all to aliens. But it is a collectible first edition and it's up there as well. Next one is The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. Very famous book, maybe not as famous today, but you still have the 14 Times website and the 14 Times magazine, and it all comes back to Charles Fort. And in here you'll find just the weirdest of weird stuff. You'll find he'll talk about showers of tadpoles falling from the sky and Bigfoot and that kind of thing. That's really where Ford is set up. Things the science can't really explain. So he's got triangular clouds, discoveries of weird and ancient artifacts, and ice falling from the sky have all been deliberately ignored by scientists, according to Charles Ford. The next one is about Atlantis. And again, anybody who likes conspiracy theories will know all about Atlantis, the lost continent. So The View Over Atlantis by John Mitchell. And I love the artwork on these books. A lot of these books that we've got in are from the 70s and the artwork is brilliant. So it's all about Atlantis and trying to find it and linking it to different places, including Ireland. And the next one then is again a collectible one, Mind Control, Oswald and JFK. The classic book on mind control returns to print with additional commentary by veteran conspiracy author Ken Thomas. And this one is off the wall. So great stuff. So we have loads of them. We have a couple of hundred of those up on the weird site, and we have other ones on magic, we have ones on angels. Something for everybody there. And I take a look at theirishbookshop.com. Click on the three bars at the top and you'll see all the different categories, because we have a couple of thousand books up there at the moment, and it's our only real way of reaching you with the shops closed. As we said, this is the 33rd week of lockdown, which anybody who likes the Masons would love, and this is our only way of reaching you.
How are you lads? Back with another video for Wally, and hope you enjoyed the one last week. I was discussing a book I've written called The Hydra Syndrome, about a virus coming to Ireland. I also mentioned The Green Wave, and a book I have in the pipeline at the moment is finished, getting edited, and that's called The Storm, about a Nazi takeover. So today I'm going to discuss a new book I'm writing, a horror story. That's why I have Nosferatu on me, and this is set in Banno in Wexford, and it's about a man basically having a psychological breakdown, but maybe it's not all a psychological breakdown. Could be a horror story as well. I'm planning on writing three horror, psychological horror stories this year, hopefully, and this is the first one. It's called Totem, and I got the name Totem from a book I got in Wally's, and I have it right here, called Totem and Taboo by Sigmund Freud, and that's where I got the name from. A brilliant book. Anyone gets an opportunity to read it. The book is about the main character, who is a lecturer in philosophy. Another subject I love, philosophy. Anyone who's read any of my books will realise I like a bit of philosophy. But this character is a lecturer in philosophy in Galway, but he gets into a bit of trouble and ends up having to resign his post. So he's psychologically fucked up, you could say. He had a lot of trouble in his youth. His parents died, and he ended up being educated by priests, and then went to became a lecturer and went to Galway. Anyway, he after he was dismissed from his post, he went to the Middle East, the Levant. He went to Egypt, trying to discover himself, I suppose, and ended up in Baghdad, where he went through a bit of a traumatic experience, and decided to head back to Ireland, and he bought this ancient Georgian house in Bannow. The house, or a house, had been on the site since the Norman conquest, and a lot of nasty shit had gone down in the house. So he's after buying this house now off the local priest, and he's discovering everything is not what it seems in the house. So he went into Wexford town, where he met a priest who had stayed in the house, and tried to get information off him, but your man was a religious maniac, and he ran out of his house. He went into the Friary Church, heading downtown. So that's about as far. He meets up with this psychoanalyst, and that's another book that I used. Sigmund Freud, The Origins of Psychoanalysis. Also from Wally's, Red Books, lovely book. As you can see, I'm taking notes in all of these books. Where's that camera? There. And I use those notes in my writing. I also got this from Wally. The Parish and Its People, Bannow. And a great book, goes into the history. Once again, I'm using notes from this that I've taken, and using those notes in the story. So there's witchcraft in it, there's history, psychoanalysis, you name it, it's in the book. All the things I like, and I really enjoy writing. I'm really enjoying writing this book, and I love people reading me books. Anything I've ever written, I got great feedback from, and really enjoying it. I've also planning on bringing out 3 books this summer that I wrote a number of years ago, and they're crime novels, the Tyke Sullivan series, and I had them published as ebooks and have sold hundreds of copies of them, but now I'm hoping to bring them out in paperback. So it's an exciting time, even though with the lockdown and all, you can't have launches, you can't do a whole lot. It's nearly impossible to sell books at the moment, but I just love writing them anyway, And sure, if no one reads them, I get the pleasure of writing them. So I hope you enjoyed this little video, and I'll see you all again. And thanks a lot for listening. Oh, I forgot to show you, I have, or did I? I've Nosferatu on me today, especially for the occasion. Goes with the tattoos as well, you know, the sign of my misspent youth. And but I'm bringing that into my books as well. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all again. Thanks a lot, lads. Bye bye.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all keeping well. I'm outside this evening in Morris Castle. I just thought this would be the perfect time to record this video. After been looking at a computer screen all day, and it's golden hour, the sun's shining directly at my face, and you can kind of hear the birds. You can't really see the sea behind me, but if I turned around, I could. And yeah, this is just the moment that we have every day to enjoy, and the moment that I look forward to. So I thought I'd record it here. This week I'm just going to take it easy and talk about upcoming festivals and events that are happening at the moment. Even though we can't physically attend them, ironically it's actually easier to go to these events because it's just the click of a button. Cork Festival was founded in 1985. It is one of Europe's oldest book festivals. Ordinarily, when we're not in the middle of a lockdown, it's based in Galway. And Court is proudly sponsored by another fantastic bookshop, which is Charlie Burns. The term court is inspired by the Gaelic court of poets, so the festival arises from the idea of a gathering of like-minded people who enjoy literature. This year it is happening from the 19th to the 25th of April, and all events that I'm about to list, as well as all other events involved in the Court Festival, are mentioned on Eventbrite. On April 22nd, Blind Boy Boat Club, who most of you will know as one half of the Rubber Bandits, will be interviewing Emma Dabiri, an Irish-Nigerian academic, activist and broadcaster. Blind Boy Boat Club also has his own podcast, so he's used to being an interviewer, but I am heavily looking forward to this particular event. As well as this, Una Min Kavanagh will be speaking on the opening night event. Una Min is a travel writer, a journalist, and a social media manager. She is known for her work against racism, and her debut novel, Unsure, was absolutely ineffable. 5 stars from me. On the 25th of April 2021, Louise O'Neill will be partaking in State of Her, the future of Irish feminism. Louise O'Neill primarily writes for young adults. She is from Clonakilty, and many of you may know her debut novel, Only Ever Yours, or Asking for It. Asking for It is my particular favourite. I thought that book opened my eyes to so much. I could not believe it. The Guardian called Louise O'Neill the best YA fiction writer alive today. And I have to say I agree. She writes YA fiction like no one else does. And also on April 25th, Douglas Stewart, winner of the 2020 Man Booker Prize for Fiction, is in conversation with literary hero and Wexford native Colm Tóibín. Also happening this week is Cork World Book Festival. This is happening from the 20th until the 25th of April. The festival first put world in their title as an aspiration in 2005, and now the festival combines readings by world-class writers in a variety of settings. Once again, all of these events are available on Eventbrite. First of all, Sarah Baum will be speaking. She is an Irish novelist that has won numerous awards, including the Hennessy New Irish Writing Award and the Rooney Prize for Literature, both in 2015. On the 22nd of April at 9 o'clock, she will be discussing The Writer as an Activist with Conal Creedon. The Irish literary journal Bealtaine will be launched on the 21st of April 2021 at 3 o'clock. This is a showcase of new Cork journal. So it's Cork based, so obviously Cork World Book Fest would want to promote it. Bealtaine was founded in 2020, and I know some of the writers taking part, and they are extremely proud of this production. There will also be a discussion on writers adapting and surviving in the COVID art scene during the pandemic. Eilish Ní Dubhna will be speaking as part of the Celebrating the Short Story event at the Cork World Book Fest on the 23rd of April 2021 at 7 o'clock. Eilish Ní Dubhna is easily one of Ireland's greatest living writers. In conclusion, plenty of events are happening online despite lockdown, and actually it's easier to take part in these. Keep checking writing.ie and Irish Writers Centre. And if you're interested in upcoming events, competitions and launches, subscribe to my email list on lanahamel.com. My mailing list is sent out monthly, and I only started it last month as part of April, and so far there has been an excellent response and plenty of reads. Take care, and I'll see you next week, where I will have an exclusive Wexford Writers special.
Hi everybody, and thanks for listening as I continue to talk about women writers. So far the women I've spoken about, although they've been exceptional writers, have had fairly conventional lives. This evening I'm going to talk about Patricia Highsmith, who certainly does not fit into any definition of kind of feminine niceness. And we'll look at a couple of her books and about suspense and psychological thrillers and how she generates that in her novels. So she was an American writer. She was born in 1921 and died in 1995. She was born a month before her parents separated and had an unhappy childhood, difficult relationship with her mother. Her mother told her at one point that she had wanted to abort her and had not been able to. From that unhappy childhood, really, she went on into a life that was beset by physical and mental ill health and by alcohol use. Patricia Highsmith had numerous short-lived affairs, mostly with women and with a few men, and she was perhaps a bit confused about her sexuality and wanted to pay for psychoanalysis to cure herself of lesbianism. And to do that, she took a Christmas job in Bloomingdale's. This actually gave her the inspiration for a novel, The Price of Salt, in which Therese, a department store assistant, meets Carol, a glamorous, wealthy woman in the process of undergoing a divorce, and they begin a lesbian romance. It was probably her only really happy novel in a way, and it was published in 1952 under a pseudonym, as her publisher didn't want her categorised as a writer who wrote lesbian novels. And it wasn't until 1990 that it came out as the novel Carol, under Highsmith's own name. And interestingly, in 1983, she wrote about that department store experience as follows. I once took a job during Christmas rush at a department store in Manhattan. Here was a scene chaotic with detail, sounds, people, and a new tempo, pretty hectic, an unending stream of little dramas that one could observe in customers, fellow workers, and the management, which was full of self-importance. I made good use of this new scene in my writing. A writer should seize upon every new scene that comes his way, take notes and turn it to account. So it's interesting there that she's referenced her novel before actually being able to publish it under her own name. So anyway, did her kind of bitter life arise simply from being a lesbian trying to conform to heterosexual norms? Maybe, but equally, she was somebody who didn't really care what people thought of her. She was overtly anti-Semitic, and often people found her hostile and difficult. Her US publisher said that she was mean, cruel, hard, unlovable, unloving. I could never penetrate how any human being could be that relentlessly ugly. But her books were brilliant. And perhaps her antisocial, somewhat transgressive nature enabled her to propel the reader into the soul of the criminal. In her psychological thrillers, we experience the distorted mental perceptions of the characters, and we start to identify with them and root for them. The suspense in the books comes partly from our fear of actually witnessing the crime that the criminal is plotting, but the greatest fear is really that the criminal will be found out. And this is twisted, terrifying genius. Her first novel, Strangers on a Train, published in 1950, was filmed the following year by Alfred Hitchcock. In it, Guy, who is an architect, is trying to divorce his unfaithful wife, Miriam, to marry his girlfriend. and purely by chance encounters a wealthy psychopath, Bruno, on a train journey. Bruno gets to know him and suggests that he'll kill Miriam if Guy kills Bruno's father, as this will make the murders untraceable. Guy doesn't agree to this, but soon Bruno kills Miriam anyway, and he kind of stalks Guy, wanting his payback. Here's an extract. "Hey," Bruno whispered, and saw her turn. "Say, isn't your name Miriam?" She faced him, but he knew she could barely see him. "Yeah? Who are you?" He came a step nearer. "Haven't I met you somewhere before?" he asked, cynically, smelling the perfume again. She was a warm, ugly black spot. He sprang with such concentrated aim the wrists of his spread hands touched. "Say what you—" His hands captured her throat on the last word, stifling its abortive uplift of surprise. He shook her. His body seemed to harden like rock, and he heard his teeth crack. She made a grating sound in her throat, but he had her too tight for a scream. With a leg behind her, he wrenched her backward, and they fell to the ground together with no sound but of a brush of leaves. He sunk his fingers deeper, enduring the distasteful pressure of her body under his, so her writhing would not get them both up. In 1955, Patricia Highsmith brought out the first book of a series about Tom Ripley. So The Talented Mr. Ripley was a book about a con man. Tom murders Dickie, who's a rich young man who he's befriended with some possible homosexual overtones. And he steals his identity in order to live on his wealth. And all the way through the book, she makes the reader root for the criminal and for Tom, and we're just hoping that somehow he's going to get away with his crime. We don't want him to be caught. So here's an extract. So in this extract, Tom Ripley has now killed Dickie and is living in his apartment, wearing his clothes and assuming his identity. And a visitor turns up called Freddie, an American who they both know. Tom went to the closet to get his jacket so that Freddie would know he wanted to leave, then realised just in time that the grey flannel jacket that matched his trousers might be recognisable as Dickie's if Freddie knew Dickie's suit. Tom reached for a jacket of his own and for his own overcoat that were hanging at the extreme left of the closet. The shoulders of the overcoat looked as if the coat had been on a hanger for weeks, which it had. Tom turned around and saw Freddie staring at the silver identification bracelet on his left wrist. It was Dickie's bracelet, which Tom had never seen him wearing, but had found in Dickie's stud box. Freddie was looking at it as if he'd seen it before. Tom put on his overcoat casually. Freddie was looking at him now with a different expression, with a little surprise. Tom knew what Freddie was thinking. He stiffened, sensing danger. "You're not out of the woods yet," he told himself. "You're not out of the house yet." "Ready to go?" Tom asked. "You do live here, don't you?" asked Freddie. "No," Tom protested, smiling. Freddie's ugly, freckle-blotched face stared at him from under the garish thatch of red hair. If they could only get out without running into Signora Buffy downstairs, Tom thought. "Let's go." Plotting and writing suspense fiction is a book that I've had for years, even before I really started to write. In it, Patricia Highsmith gives some really personal insights into how she generates stories, and it's a real pleasure to read. Here's a short extract from it. Criminals are dramatically interesting because, for a time at least, they're active, free in spirit, and they don't knuckle down to anyone. I'm so law-abiding I can tremble before a customs inspector with nothing contraband in my suitcases. Perhaps I have some severe and severely repressed criminal drive in myself, or I would not take such an interest in criminals or write about them so often. And I think many suspense writers, except perhaps those whose heroes and heroines are the wronged and victimised parties and whose villains are off-scene, unattractive or doomed, must have some kind of sympathy and identification with criminals, or they would not become emotionally engrossed in books about them. The suspense book is vastly different from the mystery story in this respect. The suspense writer often deals much more closely with the criminal mind, because the criminal is usually known throughout the book, and the writer has to describe what is going on in his head. Unless a writer is sympathetic, he cannot do this. So that's my short take on Patricia Highsmith. Of my 4 books, 2 were from the irishbookshop.com, so you may well find others there. If not, don't forget your copy of Wexford Women Writing Undercover. First edition came out in March, and I think another edition is planned for later this year to be brought out by Red Books and available through the irishbookshop.com. Thank you for listening.
Hi everyone, how's things? D.A. Gaisley here. Hope you're all keeping well. On another episode of the Irish Bookshop Live, many thanks to Wally O'Neill for asking me to do another video. So tonight I'm going to talk about the great Irish historian Dermot Ferreter. To date he has wrote 11 books and he's co-authored another one. I'm just going to talk about 5 of these books tonight, and I'm also going to just give a brief outline of his career. So Dermot Ferreter was born in 1972 in Dublin. He's probably best well known as being the Professor of Modern Irish History at UCD, a position he has held since 2008 from the age of 35. He was also previously a senior lecturer at St Patrick's College in Drumcondra in Dublin City University. He was the former host of the What If popular Sunday morning radio programme that broadcast weekly in RT1 from 2003 to 2009, and he also presented Ireland's RT's History Show from 2011 to 2013. So the first book then tonight that I'm going to talk about is The Transformation of Ireland 1900 to 2000, which was published in 2004. It contains 900 pages. It offered many new perspectives on modern Irish history and is considered a landmark publication in Irish history. It deals with North and South relations. In my opinion, probably one of the best historical books ever wrote. Being a historian myself, I have worked from this book on numerous occasions. It would have been a book that we used in college quite regularly. Dermot Ferreter's This is one of the most landmark books. It was said at the time by Fintan O'Toole that Dermot Ferreter's brilliant use of new sources, his attention to ordinary as well as extraordinary lives, and his balance of scepticism and engagement make this the most vivid and stimulating history of 20th century Ireland currently available. There is currently 8 chapters in the book, a great big bibliography section, a great introductory section. I believe one of the best books wrote on Irish history in that period. So the second book that I'm going to talk about is Judge and Dev, and this book, it's critically acclaimed. Published in 2007, it won 3 categories at the 2008 Irish Book Awards, an achievement that remains unmatched. Visit the irishbookshop.com. There's currently a copy. Red Books currently have a copy for €20. A brilliant book. The use of sources, the use of letters, the use of photographs gives a vivid outline of the life and times of the former Taoiseach and President of Ireland, Eamon de Valera. Whether you're a fan of Eamon's or not, this is a book that every household in Ireland should have. A brilliant piece of work by Dermot Ferreter, critically acclaimed as I just said there. This has 13 chapters, very historical book. As I said, there is currently a copy, there's 1 copy available at irishbookshop.com at the moment, so log in, get it posted out to you. A brilliant book, you won't regret it. So the third book then that I'm going to talk about is Occasions of Sex and Sin. This was published by Dermot Ferreter. It is Sex and Society in Modern Ireland. It's considered the definite history, or the definitive history of Irish sexuality in the 20th century, and was described by the Irish Times at the time as a rigorous and layered examination of a topic that befuddled Irish people for most part of the century. There is currently 5 chapters in this. Fintan O'Toole also said that it's a groundbreaking study of the control of sexuality by the church and state in 20th century Ireland. For anyone tempted by the sin of nostalgia, Ferreter's research narrative is a powerful tool. I'd highly recommend this book. Another book that I've worked off, being a historian myself. Very powerful. To be fair to Dermot Ferreter, any book, there's great bibliography, there's great references. I just think brilliant. So 2014 then, Dermot Ferreter starts up a weekly column with Ireland's Irish Times. He's also a frequent person on RTE and Virgin Media doing debates. Most recently he took back in the Claire Byrne RTE debate regarding a united Ireland. Which brings me to the next Dermot Ferreter book, The Border, The Legacy of a Century of Anglo-Irish Politics, which was published in 2019. This book was also critically acclaimed. You're getting a theory here now that Dermot Ferreter is a critically acclaimed historian. It was highly critically acclaimed in the UK and in Ireland, and became a bestseller. The Times hailed it as a rare pleasure, suggesting that anyone who wanted to understand why Brexit was proven such difficulty needed to read this book. The Irish Independent described it as a history of the problem child that nobody wants, which was hailed as Irish Times as invaluable. This book currently has 7 chapters, very historical. I'd highly recommend this book, a very enjoyable book that I read. I'd have to say one of my favourite history books of all time. And the final book then tonight that I'm going to talk about, which was published in 2016, is Dermot Ferreter's On the Edge. And this is a history of Ireland's offshore islands. It's a modern history. There is 7 chapters in this, a great bibliography. The Irish Times called it thoughtful, balanced and even-handed. The Financial Times called it outstanding and carefully researched, sets the bar high for good writing and scholarship. Dermot Ferreter also wrote many other books. These are just 5 that I decided tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, there is a copy of Judge and Dev on the Irish Bookshop website at the moment, which is irishbookshop.com. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. D.A. Gazy, signing out. Take care.
This is the coastal town that they forgot to close down. Armageddon, come Armageddon, come Armageddon, come. Every day is like Sunday. Every day is silent and gray.
My name is John McGarrigle. This is my novel. It's called A Novel Attempt. A little boy played on the floor. The story so far. I've introduced a character and a place. A boy and the floor. But I haven't told you the time. It's 6:30, I think. Now, but I'm not sure in the story. I know I've lost you. Attention span. You have to capture the reader or viewer. I imagine this will be turned into a film one day. In the first bit, or they're gone. I suspect I am already talking to myself. I have a friend, and I'm going to name him because I know I should get his permission, but anyway, he won't mind. Maybe he will anyway. He sometimes bursts out laughing after half a sentence, and I haven't said anything funny. I put it down to his short attention span. I try to keep his attention, but I can see he's already switched off. And I think he's laughing at something he's thinking. He's probably wandering along in his own thoughts and seen something funny. And then I'm nattering on in front of him. It's okay, he's gone. Uh-oh, here she is. I haven't asked her permission. Who are you talking about? Sorry, darling, this is my writing. Have you seen the book I was reading? I think it's on the kitchen table. The boy rolled a dice. It was a 5. That meant you were run out. His team were not doing well. He threw another 5, but it didn't count. He could not summon a reason to discount it, but thought it reasonable to throw again. It was another 5. Stupid game. So the story so far. Annoying, isn't it? All these incursions into the narrative. Lawrence Sterne was badly named. Didn't live up to his name, I meant to say. Badly named could be seen as a criticism of his parents' naming abilities. Perhaps they were part of the good enough dynasty and didn't live up to their names. It's been a long night. Here she is again. These Zooms are hard work. So I've set out to write an academic paper which contains an attempt to... No, I've moved on. I imagined a novel with interpretation by the narrator. You see, I wonder, do we need one dominant narrative? Can we learn to follow different protagonists with equal interests? Are we conditioned to watch a story unfold from the one view? Or is that just a reality to contend with? I suppose we assume that everyone thinks like this. Or thinks. Maybe it's the short attention span that we've been conditioned with. So an old man looks back and pictures the street he grew up on. He sees the 2 girls next door, Karen and Kim. Their dad was a merchant seaman, away a lot. The little boy played with them, then played on his own in long summers. A made-up game of cricket with the dice. Who cares? So the story so far. There is a little boy growing up. It could be the narrator, but now actually I'm going to tell you that I will imagine the story I have to place on this little boy. I'm going to imagine that he is an altar boy trying to help a priest overcome doubts about his vocation. She's out the door. She'll be back. Busy with work thing. I am alone. Retired. It's been a long night. We just returned from the west. Martin lent us his place. It gets dark late over there and lighter earlier. Or is it the other way round? So back here I thought it would be earlier in the morning, but no, I woke up several times and thought it must be 6 o'clock. As King Arthur said when a 7-foot-tall colleague passed on his trusty steed. That was a long night. Sorry. So in my dream I went off to some office, and this man I was trying to impress, well maybe not, I said to him, "Humour is very elusive. It's not easy." He didn't laugh, but took me to a dinner, and a man joined in with a band playing a mouth organ into a pint glass. The little boy didn't know any different. This world was all he had. The catechism. Who made me? Why all that condensed into a little orange-covered book to recite, like Chairman Mao's little red book? I suppose it made sense. He felt good to confess, to say sorry. Going to Mass. Yes, pure, clean. Wash it away. sin, whatever that is. Oh yes, being alive. Now where are we? Are these thoughts then or now? Why bother with the Bible? A short little book to simplify it would suffice. Apparently, film, I have been told on the numerous courses I've been to learn how to write a screenplay, apparently film comes out of the images used to display the stories of the Bible on broadsheets in order to explain it to the common people. So do all our films have to have religious themes or stories of redemption? Is it universal human experience to get it wrong, be sorry, and learn to do it right? Or is it a culturally dominant theme imposed on or conditioned on our experience in the story of film? I wonder about Eastern films and consciousness and know that my ignorance will tread all over a culture. They shout a lot in Kurosawa, or they stay silent. The in-between is to rise a fucking big sword and slice someone in two. Or is that just throne of blood? I think I'd better get up. It's been a long night. But do they say sorry and ask forgiveness? I saw it years ago at University Film Club. I better get up and tidy the kitchen before she gets back, otherwise. She might look nice, but I prefer to see her as a geisha than a samurai. And there's no truth in the saying, 2 heads are better than 1, when the guillotine descends. The washing up. A cleansing. Just had a shower after the washing up. Like confessional, really, only no priest in the shower. I think I've got athlete's foot. I don't know why. I don't like running. Okay, that's enough. I'm tired of this. No. I'm not going to write any more of this novel.
Here's a brilliant song called That's What Friends Are For. And hopefully when the karaoke sessions come back, I'll be singing this song at that. And I never thought I'd feel this way. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad I got the chance to say that I do believe I love you. And if I should ever go away, well then close your eyes and try feel the way we do today. And then if you can remember, keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. It is mine, the good times and bad times. I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. It is mine, as I say. Well, you came and opened me, and now there's so much more I see. close your eyes and try. The words are coming from my heart. And then if you can remember, oh, keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. In good times and bad times, I'll be on your side forevermore. Oh, that's what friends are for. Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. In good times and bad times, I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. In good times and bad times, I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Yeah. Goodbye. And that was the break. That's what friends are for. On me for sure, on me for sure. I don't need to. That's what friends are for. And that was the great song. That's what friends are for.
Big books, I cannot lie. You speed readers can't deny. When you get stuck with an itty bitty text, you read it real fast, then you're on to the next. Give me Gone with the Wind or Dutch Chivago.